Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are diving into a highly accessible, totally free mental framework that literally acts as a direct multiplier for your intelligence. We're going to unpack what's known as the metacognition hack and look at exactly how thinking about thinking boosts your IQ. Now, to be clear, this isn't about, memorizing a giant encyclopedia of facts or taking some questionable magic supplement. Not at all. It's an always available internal tool that fundamentally upgrades your cognitive software simply by shifting how you operate your very own mind. Could I be biased? I want you to just take a deliberate second and let that question hang in the air. It's a deeply uncomfortable question, isn't it? I mean, think about the last time you saw a super controversial news headline or maybe read a heated post online that just made your blood boil. In that exact moment, did you pause to ask yourself if you might be biased? Look, as human beings, we navigate our daily lives with this built-in, totally natural assumption that our perception of reality is completely objective. We genuinely feel that what we see, what we conclude, and what we believe is just the truth. We almost never pause to interrogate the lens we're actually viewing that truth through. But what our source material reveals is that the willingness to pause and ask the specific question is the absolute foundational step to unlocking a higher level of intelligence. Before we even get into the exact mechanics of the hack we're talking about today, you have to be willing to confront the reality that your brain, just like every single human brain out there, has blind spots. And honestly, that brings us to the absolute hero of this explainer: metacognition. Now, I know it sounds like a heavy, intimidating academic term that belongs in some incredibly dense psychology textbook, but I want to completely demystify it for you right now, because it is actually a very tangible, everyday superpower. At its core, metacognition is simply the habit of questioning your own thoughts. It literally translates to thinking about thinking. Think of it kind of like stepping outside of yourself and becoming a neutral observer of your own internal dialogue. Instead of just having a passing thought and immediately accepting it as absolute fact, metacognition means you pause and you examine the thought itself. It's like you're holding your own thought process in your hands, turning it over and closely inspecting it. It transforms you from a passive participant in your own mind to a highly active, engaged manager of your intellect. This shift in perspective is absolutely crucial because we're really contrasting two entirely different modes of operating here. By default, we all use standard thinking. And the massive danger of this default setting, as highlighted in our source, is that it's extremely vulnerable to something called confirmation bias. And let me tell you, confirmation bias is the absolute villain of our story today. It's the human tendency to instantly search for, interpret, and favor information that purely confirms our pre-existing beliefs, while pretty much entirely ignoring any information that contradicts us. Let's be real for a second. Our brains are fundamentally lazy. They just want a gold star that says, hey, you were right all along. Standard thinking falls right into that cozy little trap every single time. But then we have metacognition. When we apply this, we actively defeat that villain. By stepping back and questioning our thoughts, we totally break the autopilot of confirmation bias. We create this critical buffer zone between having a thought and acting on a thought. And that buffer zone is exactly what unlocks improved reasoning.
So, knowing the theory is one thing, but how do we actually execute this in the real world, right now? Well, here's the step-by-step guide to deploying the metacognition hack.
All right, here is your brand new mental toolkit. Step 1. Whenever you're faced with a strong conclusion, a sudden judgment, or a really deeply held assumption, you must stop and ask yourself, why do I believe this? You're basically tracing your thought all the way back to its origin. Let's say, for example, you get a really curt one-line email from a coworker and you instantly assume they're furious with you. Step 1 forces you to stop and ask why you believe that. Are they actually angry, or are you just assuming the worst because maybe you're feeling a bit stressed today? And then you immediately follow it up with step 2. Ask, could I be biased? You've got to have the intellectual humility to admit that your perspective might actually be skewed. By forcing yourself to actively deploy these two specific questions, you effectively interrupt the brain's lazy default pathways. You stop the cycle of poor reasoning dead in its tracks. You're forcing your brain to do the heavy lifting, to actually analyze the situation rather than just assume. The return on investment for making this simple cognitive pivot is absolutely massive. When you actually make a habit of asking those two questions, you trigger a cascade of profound mental benefits that are outlined perfectly by our source material. First off, it dramatically reduces confirmation bias. You start stripping away that emotional armor protecting your ideas, and you begin seeing the world with real clarity. Second, it directly improves reasoning tasks. Because you aren't just instantly jumping to conclusions, your brain can actually process complex problems logically and effectively. And finally, the ultimate result. It boosts your IQ. By consistently engaging in the habit of metacognition, by continually putting your own thoughts through this rigorous quality control process, you are quite literally elevating your baseline intelligence. You're training your brain to be sharper, way more objective, and highly resilient against logical fallacies. Which brings us to our final thought for today. We've talked about the mechanics, we've met the villain of confirmation bias, and we've seen the incredible benefits of stepping outside your own thoughts. But knowing the hack just isn't enough. You actually have to run the software. So as you walk away from this explainer, whatever challenges, conversations, or big decisions you're about to step into today, ask yourself, why do you believe what you believe right now? Take that question with you. Challenge your own certainties. Truly think about your thinking. Thank you so much for focusing in and learning with me today.